Malta is surrounded. Nearly 200 Ottoman ships cover the horizon. Tens of thousands of soldiers are landing on the island. Ahead of them stand walls already considered too weak for such an attack. Behind those walls are several thousand defenders, including only about 500 Knights of the Order of St. John. Their nearest major support is across the sea in Sicily. No one knows whether it will arrive. The Ottoman guns open fire. Stone walls crack. Men disappear beneath collapsing masonry. Day after day, elite janissaries climb over the bodies of those who attacked before them. The defenders are exhausted. Their ammunition is running out. Almost every knight is wounded. But the Ottomans still cannot break them. By the end of the siege, one of the most powerful military machines in the world will abandon Malta. How did a few hundred knights survive an invasion organized by Suleiman the Magnificent? In the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire is one of the largest and most dangerous states on earth. Its possessions stretch across southeastern Europe, Western Asia, and northern Africa. Constantinople is its capital. Egypt, Syria, Greece, Bulgaria, and much of Hungary obey the Sultan. Ottoman fleets dominate large parts of the eastern Mediterranean. At the head of this empire stands Suleiman I, known in Europe as Suleiman the Magnificent. During his long reign, Ottoman armies capture Belgrade, defeat the Hungarians at Mohacs, and advance as far as Vienna. Suleiman presents himself not only as a ruler, but as the leader of a universal empire. Yet one old enemy continues to attack his ships. The Knights Hospitaller began as a religious order caring for sick pilgrims in Jerusalem. During the Crusades, they became a military organization. Their members took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but they also trained for war. After the Crusaders lost their territories in the Holy Land, the Knights moved first to Cyprus and then to Rhodes. From Rhodes, they operated armed galleys against Muslim shipping. They seized cargo, captured prisoners, and interfered with Ottoman communications. For the Sultan, they were pirates, hiding behind the symbol of the cross. For Christian Europe, they were a defensive shield in the Mediterranean. In 1522, Suleiman attacked Rhodes. The Knights resisted for 6 months, but their position became hopeless. Their Grand Master surrendered on honorable terms, and the surviving Knights left the island. For 7 years, the order had no permanent home. Then, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V offered the Knights Malta, Gozo, and the North African port of Tripoli. In return, the order was to send 1 falcon each year to the emperor's representative in Sicily. Malta did not look like a generous gift. The island was dry, rocky, and poor. It had few natural resources and no forests large enough to supply serious shipbuilding. But Malta had something more important than wealth: location. The island lay between Sicily and the coast of North Africa. From Malta, ships could watch the routes connecting the eastern and western Mediterranean. If the Ottomans controlled it, they could threaten Sicily and perhaps southern Italy. If the Knights held it, their galleys could continue attacking Ottoman shipping. The order reluctantly accepted Malta in 1530. Its headquarters were established at Birgu, a small town beside the Grand Harbor. At the tip of Birgu stood the old Castrum Maris, rebuilt and strengthened as Fort Saint Elmo. Across the water was the Senglea Peninsula, defended by Fort St. Michael. Between the Grand Harbor and Marsamxett Harbor rose the long, rocky ridge of Mount Scaberras. At its seaward end stood a smaller fortress, Fort Saint Elmo. These positions protected the entrances to Malta's best anchorages, but they were not part of one continuous defensive wall. An enemy controlling the surrounding heights could place artillery above the towns and fire directly into them. The danger becomes clear in 1551, when an Ottoman force attacks Malta. The invaders do not capture the main harbor, but they devastate Gozo and carry much of its population into slavery. They then seize Tripoli from the order. 9 years later, an even greater disaster strikes the Christian powers. In 1560, Spain sends a large expedition against Ottoman positions in North Africa. Near the island of Jerba, the Ottoman fleet surprises and destroys much of the Christian armada. Thousands are killed or captured. The defeat confirms Ottoman naval superiority and leaves Malta exposed. The knights understand that another invasion will come. Their Grand Master is Jean Périsseau de Valette. He is already in his 60s, an advanced age for the period. He has spent much of his life at war. He fought during the Siege of Rhodes, survived captivity as a galley slave, and later commanded the order's ships. He knows Ottoman methods, and he knows what surrender can mean. De Valette strengthens the forts, repairs walls, stores grain, and requests soldiers from Europe. His agents in Constantinople send reports about Ottoman preparations. By the end of 1564, the warning becomes clear. Suleiman is assembling a major expedition. The immediate cause is linked to the knights' attacks at sea. Their commander, Maturin Romega, captures valuable Ottoman vessels and important passengers. But the conflict is larger than a single raid. The order has survived Rhodes, rebuilt its fleet, and continued striking Ottoman commerce. Suleiman is now determined to remove it permanently. Orders go out across the network of the Hospitallers. Knights are summoned to Malta. Mercenaries are recruited. The Maltese militia is organized. Grain is harvested early or destroyed so that the invaders cannot use it. Wells outside the defended zone are fouled. Civilians from exposed villages move behind the walls. Even after these preparations, the defenders remain desperately outnumbered. The exact size of the two armies is disputed. Contemporary accounts often exaggerate numbers. The Ottoman expedition probably contains between 30 and 40,000 fighting men, supported by sailors, laborers, artillery crews, and followers. The fleet numbers close to 200 vessels. Among the troops are janissaries, the disciplined infantry of the Sultan, sipahis and other cavalry, artillerymen, engineers, corsairs, and soldiers from Ottoman territories across the Mediterranean. The defenders have roughly 6,000 men who can fight. They include about 500 knights, Spanish and Italian professional soldiers, sailors, galley slaves, servants, and several thousand Maltese militia. Many Maltese are not professional troops, but they know the terrain and understand what will happen to their families if the island falls. The knights themselves come from different regions of Catholic Europe. They speak different languages and often belong to rival noble families. But they have trained for this kind of battle. Each knight is supported by soldiers, servants, and local fighters. The famous 500 are only the armored core of a much larger defense. Command of the Ottoman expedition is divided. Mustafa Pasha leads the land army. He is experienced, cautious, and focused on destroying the defenders. Piali Pasha commands the fleet. His priority is to secure a protected anchorage and preserve the Sultan's ships. Another celebrated commander, the corsair Dragut, is expected to join them later. This divided authority becomes a serious problem. The Ottoman Armada leaves Constantinople in March 1565. On May 18th, it appears off Malta. Warning guns sound across the island. People rush into Birgu and Senglea. From the walls, the defenders see sail after sail moving across the horizon. De Valette refuses to meet the invaders in open battle. The Maltese countryside will be surrendered. The real struggle will take place around the Grand Harbor. The Ottomans land in the south and begin moving toward the defended towns. Mustafa initially considers attacking the heart of the knights' position directly. Piali objects. He wants the fleet sheltered in Marsamzet Harbor, but Fort Saint Elmo controls its entrance. As long as the fort remains in Christian hands, Ottoman ships using that anchorage will be exposed. The commanders decide to capture Saint Elmo first. It appears to be a small preliminary operation. Ottoman engineers believe the fort can be taken within several days. Then the fleet can enter Marsamzet, the heavy guns can be redirected, and the main attack against Birgu and Senglea can begin. This calculation seems reasonable. It will cost them almost a month. Fort Saint Elmo stands on exposed rock at the end of Mount Sciberras. It is separated from the main defenders by water. Its walls are not designed to withstand an attack from the higher ground behind it. Once Ottoman artillery occupies the ridge, cannon fire can descend into the fort. But Saint Elmo also has one important advantage. At night, small boats can cross from Fort St. Angelo, bringing soldiers, ammunition, and food. Wounded men can be evacuated, while fresh troops take their places. Mustafa positions artillery on Mount Sciberras. The bombardment begins. Heavy cannonballs smash into the walls. Ottoman troops dig trenches toward the fort. Snipers and artillery make movement inside dangerous, even during daylight. The defenders repair damage at night. They fill gaps with timber, earth, stones, and barrels. Every morning, the Ottoman gunners begin again. Assault parties test the outer defenses. Janissaries move forward under fire, cross broken ground, and attack the fort's outworks. The defenders answer with arquebuses, cannon, grenades, stones, and incendiary weapons. Men fight at distances so short that neither side can miss. The Ottomans capture a covered approach and move their weapons closer. Saint Elmo is gradually isolated. Its walls are reduced to rubble, but the rubble itself becomes another defensive position. Then Dragut arrives. He is one of the most feared Ottoman commanders in the Mediterranean. Born on the Anatolian coast, he has risen through Corsair warfare. He has raided Christian shores, governed Tripoli, fought major naval campaigns, and escaped captivity. By 1565, he is an old man, but his reputation is enormous. Dragut reportedly criticizes the original landing and the decision to attack Saint Elmo before securing the whole area. It is too late to reverse the operation. He adds new batteries and tightens the blockade. Ottoman guns are placed so that boats crossing from St. Angelo come under heavier fire. Inside St. Elmo, conditions become unbearable. Men cannot sleep. Dust fills the air. The wounded lie beside those still fighting. Priests move through the ruins, hearing confessions and giving the last rites. The defenders know the fort cannot be saved. A group of senior knights sends a message to de Valette. They explain that St. Elmo is no longer defensible. Another major assault will destroy the garrison. They request permission to abandon it. The Grand Master does not agree. The longer St. Elmo survives, the longer Birgu and Senglea have to prepare. Every day spent at the fort shortens the time available to the Ottomans before the dangerous autumn season. Every Ottoman soldier lost on Mount Sciberras will not attack the main walls. De Valette sends commissioners to inspect the position. Their judgment is less hopeless. The Grand Master then informs the protesting knights that if they cannot continue, other volunteers will take their places. For men whose identity is built on courage and honor, the message is devastating. They withdraw their request and remain. The struggle continues. Ottoman troops launch repeated assaults. The defenders use hoops covered in flammable material, fire pots, and other incendiary devices against the massed attackers. Burning men fall from the walls or run back into their own formations. The Ottomans answer with arrows, bullets, grenades, and concentrated cannon fire. Neither side gives ground easily. During the bombardment, Dragut is mortally wounded. Accounts disagree about exactly what strikes him. It may be a fragment of stone thrown up by Christian cannon fire, or debris caused by an Ottoman shot hitting nearby rock. He is carried away, his condition concealed from much of the army. On June 23rd, the final assault begins. By now, the remaining defenders of St. Elmo are exhausted, burned, wounded, and nearly surrounded. Some are too injured to stand. According to later accounts, wounded knights are placed on chairs with swords in their hands so they can face the last attack. The Ottomans advance from several directions. Janissaries pour over the ruins. The defenders fight until organized resistance becomes impossible. Almost the entire garrison is killed. St. Elmo falls. But the victory is nothing like the easy success Ottoman commanders expected. Thousands of their men have been killed or wounded during weeks of bombardment and assaults. Among the dead is Dragut, who dies soon after the fort is taken. Mustafa looks across the harbor at the stronger defenses of St. Angelo, and is said to wonder what price will be required to defeat the father after the son has cost them so much. The fall of Saint Elmo brings a new horror. The Ottomans mutilate the bodies of captured knights and send them floating across the harbor toward Birgu. De Valette answers with equal brutality. Ottoman prisoners are killed, and their heads are fired from cannon into the enemy lines. There will be no negotiated surrender. The Ottoman fleet can now enter Marsamzet harbor. Guns are moved against Birgu and Senglea. Batteries surround the Christian positions. The main siege begins. Mustafa tries to cut the defenders off completely. Ottoman troops occupy the countryside and establish camps around the harbor. Trenches approach the walls. Cannon fire strikes houses, churches, bastions, and streets. The towns become military ruins. Civilians shelter underground. Women and children carry water, prepare food, repair damage, and care for the wounded. Maltese fighters make sorties at night. Every person behind the walls becomes part of the defense. The Ottomans now target Senglea, the peninsula protected by Fort Saint Michael. If they capture it, Birgu and Fort Saint Angelo will be placed under even greater pressure. To attack Senglea from the water, Ottoman troops drag boats across Mount Skiberas into the Grand Harbor. The movement is hidden from the defenders, but local observers discover what is happening. De Valette orders a barrier constructed across the water beside the peninsula. The Ottomans attempt to destroy it. Maltese swimmers enter the harbor under fire and repair the barrier. Some fight enemy swimmers beneath the surface. The struggle extends from the walls to the water itself. Mustafa prepares a major combined assault for July 15th. Thousands of soldiers will attack St. Michael from the land, while boats carry janissaries toward the side facing the harbor. The defenders must divide their strength. The attack begins before dawn. Ottoman troops surge toward the walls. Cannon smoke covers the approaches. Ladders rise against the fortifications. At the same time, boats filled with elite soldiers move across the water. But De Valette has anticipated a naval attack. A concealed battery near the base of Fort Saint Angelo opens fire at close range. Cannonballs and chain shot tear through the crowded boats. Vessels break apart. Soldiers in armor fall into the harbor and drown. Those who reach the shore face defenders waiting behind the barricades. The land assault continues for hours. The attackers briefly gain positions near St. Michael, but the defenders counterattack. By the end of the day, the Ottomans have lost large numbers of men and gained nothing decisive. Still, they have reserves. The defenders do not. Every failed Ottoman assault weakens the invasion army, but every Christian casualty is harder to replace. The knights wait for help from Sicily. De Valette has been promised relief, yet the main force does not arrive. Sicily's viceroy, Garcia de Toledo, faces a terrible decision. If he sends his fleet too early and the Ottomans destroy it, Malta will fall, and Sicily may be left defenseless. King Philip II of Spain is cautious with his ships. Men must be recruited, equipped, gathered, and transported. From Malta, the delay looks like abandonment. A small relief force eventually reaches the island at the beginning of July. Several hundred soldiers slip through the Ottoman blockade and enter Birgu. Their arrival raises morale, but it does not change the balance. The defenders still face an army many times their size. Summer heat spreads sickness through the Ottoman camp. Water becomes a problem. Food deteriorates. Dead men and animals contaminate the ground. Yet Mustafa cannot simply leave. Saint Elmo has been taken at enormous cost, and Suleiman expects Malta to be conquered. The bombardment intensifies. According to one contemporary estimate, around 130,000 cannon shots are fired during the siege. Whether the exact number is correct or not, the physical destruction is immense. Sections of Birgu and Senglea are reduced to broken stone. Ottoman miners dig beneath the defenses. Their goal is to place explosives under walls and bastions. The defenders dig countermines, listen for movement underground, and fight in dark tunnels. A battle may begin with cannon fire above ground and end with knives beneath it. On August 7th, Mustafa launches another enormous assault against Birgu and Senglea. Mines explode, walls collapse. Ottoman troops rush into the breaches. In places, the defenders are driven back. Flags appear on captured positions. Civilians believe the end has come. Valette refuses to leave the threatened sector. Though elderly, he takes a sword and joins the counterattack. When advisors urge him to move to safety, he remains near the breach. If the walls fall, there will be no safe place on Malta. Then something unexpected happens behind the Ottoman lines. A small Christian cavalry force based at Medina rides out and attacks the poorly defended Ottoman camp. The horsemen kill wounded soldiers, destroy supplies, and set structures on fire. From the main battlefield, the smoke and confusion make the raid appear much larger than it really is. A report spreads that the Great Relief Army from Sicily has landed. Mustafa fears his troops are about to be trapped between the defenders and a fresh army. At the moment when victory may be within reach, he orders forces to withdraw from the breaches and protect the camp. The alarm is false. No major relief force has arrived, but the opportunity has passed. The defenders retake their positions, rebuild barricades, and prepare for the next assault. Mustafa soon realizes the mistake and resumes the attack. Yet surprise has been lost. Ottoman troops must cross the same killing grounds again. The knights now understand how close they came to destruction. The siege turns into a contest of endurance. The Ottomans construct a large siege tower designed to overlook the walls. It is protected against fire and filled with soldiers. But Maltese engineers have prepared a concealed response. They remove parts of the wall from behind, position cannon at ground level, and fire chain shot into the base of the tower. The structure is shattered, along with the men inside. Each Ottoman solution creates another problem. Each Christian success buys only a little time. Mustafa offers terms. If the defenders surrender, their lives may be spared. Valette rejects the proposal. He reportedly points toward the ditch and tells the messenger that this is the only territory he can offer the invaders, the ground in which they will be buried. The defenders are no longer fighting for a favorable settlement. They believe defeat means death, slavery, or the destruction of their order. The cruelty already shown by both sides leaves little room for compromise. August passes. The Ottoman commanders grow anxious. Their army has suffered severe losses from combat and disease. Elite janissaries cannot be replaced. Ammunition and supplies are being consumed. The weather will not remain favorable forever. Autumn storms could trap the fleet far from Constantinople. But Malta still has not fallen. Mustafa considers abandoning the ruined harbor forts and marching inland against Medina, the old capital of Malta. Medina has fewer defenders, and capturing it might provide shelter and a symbolic victory. The city responds with deception. Its defenders dress civilians in military clothing and place them on the walls so that the garrison appears stronger. They conserve cannonballs by firing only when Ottoman scouts come close. From a distance, Medina looks prepared for a long defense. The Ottomans decide not to attack. Meanwhile, the long-awaited relief army is finally assembling in Sicily. It includes Spanish, Italian, and other troops under experienced commanders. The force is not enormous compared with the original Ottoman army, but the besiegers are no longer the army that landed in May. On September 7th, the relief force reaches Malta and lands in the north of the island. Ottoman resistance at the landing point is limited. The soldiers move inland, uncertain of the enemy's exact strength. News of their arrival reaches Mustafa. He begins evacuating troops and artillery toward the fleet. After months of failure, the Ottomans are preparing to leave. Then Mustafa receives reports suggesting that the Christian relief force is smaller than feared. He reverses his decision. Ottoman troops disembark again and march to confront it. The relief soldiers have already entered Medina and learned what the defenders endured. When they see the Ottomans approaching, discipline breaks into aggression. Instead of waiting behind strong positions, parts of the Christian army rush forward. Under ordinary circumstances, such an attack could have been disastrous. But the Ottoman troops are exhausted. Many are sick or wounded. Their confidence has been damaged by months of failed assaults. Faced with fresh soldiers advancing from high ground, their formation collapses. The retreat becomes a rout. Ottoman soldiers flee toward their ships. Christian troops pursue them across the island. Men are killed at the water's edge while trying to board. The surviving army leaves Malta. The siege is over. For almost 4 months, several thousand defenders have resisted one of the greatest military powers of the age. Fort Saint Elmo is destroyed. Birgu and Senglea are devastated. A large part of Malta's population has been killed, wounded, or displaced. Most surviving knights carry injuries. The Ottoman losses are impossible to establish precisely. Contemporary Christian accounts give extremely high figures, sometimes more than 30,000. Modern estimates remain uncertain, but the invasion force clearly suffered devastating casualties from combat, disease, and exhaustion. The claim that 500 knights defeated an entire Ottoman army is dramatic but incomplete. The knights were the leadership and professional core of the defense. Beside them fought Maltese militia, Spanish and Italian soldiers, sailors, servants, enslaved galley rowers, and civilians. Without them, the order could not have survived. Geography also mattered. Malta's natural harbors forced the Ottomans to fight for specific fortified positions. Saint Elmo delayed them far longer than expected. The waters around Birgu and Senglea allowed the defenders to move men and supplies between strongpoints. Fort Saint Angelo provided artillery support over the harbor. Ottoman command problems mattered as well. Mustafa and Piali had different priorities. Valuable time was lost at Saint Elmo. Assaults were repeatedly launched against prepared positions. The invaders possessed overwhelming numbers, but the narrow approaches prevented them from using all those numbers at once. The defenders could concentrate on the threatened point. Ottoman soldiers advancing through breaches became targets for cannon, firearms, fire weapons, and counterattacks. Numerical superiority turned into rows of men waiting to enter the same killing ground. Time became de Valette's most important weapon. He did not need to destroy the Ottoman Empire. He only needed to keep Malta unconquered until relief arrived or the campaigning season ended. Saint Elmo's sacrifice consumed nearly a month. Every repaired wall, every repelled assault, and every night the defenders survived brought the Ottomans closer to autumn. Leadership also shaped the outcome. De Valette remained visible throughout the siege. He shared the danger, rejected evacuation, and prevented despair from becoming collapse. His decisions were often ruthless. He refused to abandon Saint Elmo even when its garrison expected death. But the time purchased there may have saved the rest of Malta. Mustafa faced the opposite problem. He had to produce a clear victory for the Sultan while protecting an army weakened each day. When he attacked, he lost men. When he paused, the defenders repaired their walls. When he prepared to withdraw, the arrival of the relief force turned an organized evacuation into defeat. The victory creates celebrations across Catholic Europe. Church bells ring. De Valette is praised as the defender of Christendom. Money and volunteers reach the devastated island. But the Ottoman Empire has not suddenly become weak. It remains a great power. Ottoman fleets continue operating across the Mediterranean, and Cyprus will be conquered only a few years later. The siege does not end the struggle between the Ottoman and Christian powers. Its psychological effect is still enormous. For decades, Ottoman expansion appeared almost unstoppable. Constantinople had fallen. Hungary had been crushed. Rhodes had been taken. Christian fleets had been destroyed at Preveza and Jerba. Malta proves that a carefully defended position can survive even a massive Ottoman attack. 6 years later, a Christian coalition defeats an Ottoman fleet at Lepanto. Malta does not directly cause that victory, but the defense becomes part of a broader change in confidence. The empire can be resisted. The destroyed defenses of Malta are rebuilt. De Valette understands that the next invasion may succeed if Mount Chiberis remains open to an enemy. A new fortified city is planned on the ridge where Ottoman cannon once stood. Its foundation stone is laid in 1566. The city is named Valette in honor of the Grand Master. Massive bastions surround it. The new capital is designed so that no enemy can repeat the siege in the same way. Money from across Europe helps turn the barren ridge into one of the strongest fortified cities in the Mediterranean. De Valette does not live long enough to see it completed. He dies in 1568 and is buried in the new city. Suleiman also dies soon after the siege. In 1566, at more than 70 years old, he leads another campaign into Hungary. He dies during the siege of Sigedvar. His death is concealed from the army until the campaign is over. The two old leaders never meet. Yet their final years become connected by Malta. Suleiman, ruler of a vast empire, determined to eliminate an old enemy, and De Valette, commander of a small order that refuses to disappear. The Great Siege survives in memory because its central image is so powerful. A tiny island, several broken forts, and a few thousand exhausted defenders facing an armada. But the victory was not a miracle outside history. It came from preparation, fortifications, geography, leadership, sacrifice, Ottoman command disputes, and the arrival of relief at the moment when the invasion army could no longer recover. The defenders did not win because they were invulnerable. They won because they continued fighting after Saint Elmo fell, after the walls were breached, after relief failed to arrive, and after defeat appeared inevitable. For the Ottomans, Malta was meant to be a short operation before larger conquests. Instead, one small fort consumed weeks. 2 shattered towns consumed the summer. And when fresh troops finally landed from Sicily, the most powerful invasion fleet in the Mediterranean carried a defeated army home. If you enjoyed this story, support the video with a like and subscribe to the channel.